Makhubo. He joins us now to talk to us about his plans for the city. And to be a part of this conversation, you can let us know your comments and your questions for the mayor on 072-110-5584. You can tweet us tonight at Newzroom 405. Mayor, good evening and thank you for your time.
Good evening, Thabo, and good evening to the viewers at home. Thank you very much.
I'm going to announce in a moment, or get to the point in a moment, of the announcement of your mayoral committee. But let's take a step back. The rigorous interview with the top officials of the ANC. How did you prepare for that rigorous interview? And what was your value proposition that made them certain that you tick all the boxes?
Well, it was quite a difficult process, because you are not given a script upfront as to what you expect. You have got to look at your understanding of the ANC policy positions in relation to local government. You've got to understand the 2016 manifesto of the ANC. You've got to understand the policy prescripts that govern local government, be it the Structures Act, the Systems Act, the Municipal Finance Management Act, and any other piece of legislation, but also look at the current growth and development strategy of the city 2040, including the 5-year IDP program that has been approved by the city and the budget. But also key was to say, which I think what the officials were interested in, is your understanding of the current challenges that are facing the city. You can go to town and explain all of them, but the key question that is raised by the president is, what are the solutions? What are you going to do? We appreciate you understand the problems, but what is it that you are going to do to ensure that the problems are dealt with? So it was quite a rigorous interview, quite interesting, and we dealt with all the issues. And I think I was able to demonstrate with practical examples what is it that we are going to be doing in responding to the challenges that have been identified. And I think that is what the officials were looking for in the main.
Now, each mayor, I suppose, that comes into office is entitled to appoint his support team and his mayoral committee team that is going to fulfill the vision that the mayor has for the city. You have chosen to retain at least 8 out of the 10. Is it because you're not really going to deviate much from the plan that was already in place, put in place by your predecessor, or are there new ideas that you're coming with?
Well, I think the principle guiding myself, including all the political parties which form or make up the government of local unity, was that one of continuity. Why do you want to change the team with 6 months to go? You don't want to bring in people that do not have the necessary experience, including a grasp of the departments and the entities that they are going to be overseeing. So the team, I was part of the team myself. I was quite pleased with the work that all the 8 team members have been doing over the past 2 years or so. So I thought it's important that let's continue with the 8 of the team members. Obviously, I was MMC Finance. Now I'm executive mayor. We had to replace fill the vacancy of MMC Finance. We decided let's look at those among us who have been able to serve in the executive, who have had the skills and experience. Councillor Mdluli became one of the top candidates. We looked at her capacity to lead the city. She has been an MMC under Mayor Masondo and Mayor Tao, respectively. She possesses all the credentials and the skills that we require. So we didn't want to bring, especially in finance, somebody who's going to struggle. We needed somebody who could go in there and just start the process and ensure that we continue on our developmental path. So with the development department, unfortunately, the previous MMC, Mr. Lawrence Koza, tendered his resignation last night. So we had to quickly look at the available people. Remember, it's a government of local unity where also the coalition partners also bring to the fore their suggestions and comments as to who should make up the team. They provided me with the name of Councillor Tom Mufukeng, who was not a councillor, but I've worked with Councillor Mufokeng since December 2019 as part of the Political Management Committee of the current coalition. And I think I was satisfied that in our interaction, because that committee is the one that decides on the priorities and the programs that should be implemented by our coalition government. So he's got a fair understanding of the agenda at hand and what needs to be done. So I thought it's a choice that we can make and put him there to be responsible for the Economic Development Department.
Now, being the former MMC for Finance, you're well aware of the situation when it comes to the city of Johannesburg. In fact, a number of other metros as well, I think 5 or so, were downgraded by Moody's. And one of the reasons for the downgrade was the issue of liquidity pressures, looking at the fact that 80% of your revenue comes, of course, from collection that you get from services, and the precarious situation of the economy, including the pandemic, and now exacerbated also by the unrest. There is this uncertainty that you will be able to collect enough to be able to meet your debt in time when they are due. What is your big idea around revenue collection? Because, of course, we know that these economic pressures remain. They are not going to go away anytime soon, as we are still dealing with the situation of the pandemic.
Well, it's quite unfortunate that we were downgraded. If you look at our target for revenue collection in the previous financial year, which ended on the 30th of June 2021, we had set ourselves a target of 88.3%, but we exceeded the target. We collected 90.3% of our revenue. But you know, these things, you are downgraded even before the reports come out. But they work on the basis of the information at hand at that given time. It's quite unfortunate, but it is what it is. We have to continue. We must admit that it's quite difficult with COVID and the economic downturn. In the month of July alone, the first month of the financial year, the target to collect revenue for the month of July was about 4.3 billion. We were not able to collect that as a city. I think the preliminary figures are saying we collected about 3.7 billion, which suggests that it's going to be very tough to meet the target that we have set for ourselves. But it's important that we look outside the city and say, what are the other things that we can do? How do we use the capital asset? How do we use the land parcels, which are worth about 20 billion across the city, land that is owned by the city? How do we use it to ensure that we also generate revenue? There's a concept we're throwing around now, the issue of land value capture. If you've got a piece of land that is vacant and you are not using it, why don't you put it out there on the market for the private sector to put up industry so that you can then collect revenue? You can have agreements to say for the next 10 years or so, they will use the land, but after the period that has been agreed to, the land reverts back to the city. The city can then maybe pay for the infrastructure that has been put there. So we are looking at a number of options, but what is important before we even look outside for other options is to say, me and you, those who are able to pay for the services and are consuming the services, should be paying for the services, because we've got quite a number of people that are able to pay for services, but for some reason they decide not to pay. So
well,
the first time,
it's not for some reason, Mayor. It's the fact that, of course, with the pandemic, people have seen salary cuts, and consumption spend certainly has gone down. And when it comes to prioritizing rates and taxes, I suppose they would want to prioritize buying food for their households at this particular point in time. And this, of course, is what Moody's predicts will continue going forward, which will make it very difficult for you to collect. Kokta also said you collected 1.5 billion rands less in terms of your revenue. Are you going to cut on capital expenditure?
Well, we did not cut on our capital expenditure from the previous financial year, with a budget of about 7.5 billion on our capex expenditure for the previous year. Now we have a budget, the capex budget of about 8.2 billion. because it's quite important. If you want to build the economy, if you want to grow the economy, the critical thing is to get your infrastructure right. One of the things is if your road network is not up to scratch, then the businesses that are supposed to be transporting goods from one area to the other are going to complain and they're going to suffer. Therefore, you're not going to be able to grow the economy so that you then get the necessary revenues. So the idea of capping your capital expenditure becomes problematic in that sense. So we've got to up over the medium term our capital expenditure to ensure that we fix the infrastructure, maintain it, so that the economic activities can also take place.
Yeah. So are you saying we should not expect any cutback as far as infrastructure is concerned? But as far as catching up on the infrastructure backlog, what are the expectations there? I mean, we know stormwater drainage issues in the city of Johannesburg. There have been issues of refuge collection as well. There were talks previously that you might be cutting down the number of times in which you collect refuse. But the other question, of course, is the JMPD, who were unhappy as far as their salaries are concerned. Will you be able, with this limited flexibility in your budget, to give them more money?
Well, as it relates to JMPD, I've not heard about people not being happy about their salaries. What happened some few months ago was that when we implemented the STEP ICT program to move all our payment, the payroll system into the STEP program, there were some glitches where some of the JMPD officers did not receive their salaries at the end of the month. So that has been attended to. JMPD officers are getting their salaries. There's no problem. As the city, we have already budgeted for a salary increase for all our employees at about 4.3% for the new financial year. So I don't think the salary issue is a matter that we should be concerned about. Obviously, we depend on SALGA as an association of employers within local government to negotiate with labor as to what is then the final percentage that is given to labor so that we can then pay the salary increase to our employees. So as it relates to refuse removal, there's no plan to cut back on the refuse collection route that we have. We must continue on a weekly basis to collect the refuse, but also we are ramping up our Cleaner Joburg campaign, which is meant to ensure that the city is clean. We are employing no less than 15 people per ward across the city to also help us as cooperatives to clean the city on a daily basis. So we are responding to the challenge of littering and the fact that people have an outcry that the city is dirty.
All right, we continue with the mayor of the city of Johannesburg in a moment and taking some of your views as well. Tonight on WhatsApp 072-110-5584, or you can tweet us at Newzroom 405. In Focus. Welcome back. Live with us on In Focus in conversation tonight with the incoming Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, Mayor Jolidee Matongo, and we're taking your thoughts as well on Twitter at Newzroom 405, otherwise on 072-110-5584. Mayor, before the break, we were outlining, of course, some of the challenges as far as revenue collection, but also the tight budget that you're going to have to navigate. Of course, you announced in your budget some rate hikes for water and electricity. Are you oblivious to the type of pressures economically that the residents of Johannesburg are dealing with right now? Why would you want to up the rates at this point?
Well, we are not oblivious to the current economic conditions. If you look at the property rates that every property owner has to pay to the city if they have a property valued at more than 350,000. In the previous financial year, the property rates was increased by 4%. There was an outcry by the residents. We did our IDP consultations and the budget consultation. People said don't increase it, have a zero increase in the property rates. But because property rates give us around about 13 billion of our total budget, we cannot afford not to put up an increase. So in the proposal to the public, we put out another 4% increase. But as a result of the outcome and the fact that we were cognizant of the difficulties, we reduced from 4% to 2% increase in the property rates. In terms of your water and electricity, water in particular and sanitation, we relatively ensured that we do not charge people exorbitant amounts. 6.3% was the percentage that we put out there. On electricity, which is the unfortunate part, is not determined by us, it's determined by Eskom and NERSA nationally. So what NERSA has granted Eskom as an increase is what we are supposed to be implementing. So we couldn't have flexibility in that part. But remember, in the city of Johannesburg, as it relates to water, everyone gets 6 kiloliters of free water every month. That is part of the initiatives that are aimed at making sure that we relieve the pressure from our residents. We have introduced now what we call a debt rehabilitation program, where if you owe the city for more than 90 days as of 30 December 2020, and you are not able to pay, you are supposed to come to our offices so that we can make arrangements. If you say, I can pay but not the full amount, you are putting a debt rehabilitation program. We write off upfront 50% of the debt that you owe. But there's quite a number of criteria that you go to meet so that we assist you. Those who can't pay at all, they have got to be registered in our expanded social package program so that they receive the services for free. So I don't think the city is insensitive. It's just also to ensure that we keep the city going, we generate the revenue, and ensure that the services are delivered. Because I think there's got to be a lot of education to our communities about what makes up the budget of the city. Because we get grants from national, we also get our equitable share, but the bulk of the money comes from our own revenue, the money that we must raise, because of how the local government system is structured. Yeah. It's not like we sit there and there's a division of revenue and the national gives us money and then we are free to spend. Bulk of the money must come from us as the residents so that the services are delivered.
Big challenge, of course, is that your pockets have got holes. So sometimes the money comes in and it is lost to corruption and irregular expenditure. What are you going to do as you come in to tighten that situation? Give me in practical terms, how are you going to up the ante as far as risk audit as well as compliance is concerned?
Well, good governance is one of our key priorities. We've got a number of departments in the city that have been set up to deal with the problem of corruption, maladministration, including the whole issue of irregular expenditure. We've got a group forensic and investigation services, which is set up to deal with investigating any calls by the public to say, we suspect in this department, in that entity, that there's corruption. They've got the skills and the capability to investigate issues of corruption. So in practical terms, they are on the ground. We've got our group risk and assurance service that also helps us in terms of generating internal audit reports, because we've got to look at the tenders, which is quite a big issue. If the tenders are to be issued, did the officials who preside over the process do everything that is necessary to ensure that there's no corruption even at the beginning of the process in the award of tenders? Yeah. So there's a number of things we have just approved as a council. The disciplinary board, which is aimed at ensuring that those officials that are fingered in wrongdoing and corruption are hauled before the disciplinary board and they can be dealt with. The councillors themselves have got the disciplinary code of councillors. We've got the ethics committee of council that deals with any issue that is reported to council about the conduct of the councillor. So there's a number of initiatives that are on the ground to help us deal with these problems. Yeah. But also the supply chain process is being now automated to ensure that we identify any loops, any loopholes and gaps in the manner in which we approve the tenders or the award of bids to various entities.
There have been calls, and I'm sure you've heard them, and they continue to be there, to do away with the tender system, right? If you want to go buy toilet paper, go like everybody else to the store and buy it. If you want to buy milk, go to the store. You might probably even get better deals and buy it. Why do you have to go to tender all the time for even some of the basic and the simplest of things?
Well, that's how the system is currently structured. We don't think it's a problem that we should go an alternative route. If that alternative route is going to give us value for money, we have looked at a number of things. I mean, there was a program to buy food packs for the people, and we got ridiculous prices from some of the suppliers. 5 kg of mini meal that you can get in a wholesale, which cost you about 37 rand. The suppliers were charging us about 57 rand. So we are saying the economies of scale are important. If we are to be buying anything, we've got to get value for money. The issue of doing away with tenders is a long-term thing. The current system, the laws and the system are saying you follow that process, whether it's pre-quotations that you get from people, whether it's open tenders that you do and so on. But that's where we are for now. It's a system that we must work with. But I think there's no harm in looking at an alternative system. But it will also maybe come with its own challenges. If you go to buy bread, where do you go? Do you go to Albany as opposed to going to Sasco? What are the prices? So there's a number of things.
You go to the local economy. I'm sure there are bakeries in the townships that you can support as part of the broader government plan.
In fact, ourselves, we had started a process of establishing and supporting local bakeries, which Mashaba cancelled. We are reintroducing that program of local bakeries. So we are thinking outside the box already ourselves with that kind of an initiative.
Talk to me about the policy of insourcing. Your predecessor quite critical of that policy, saying it costs the city a lot of money because of the maladministration that I suppose he saw with the previous mayor. Are you keeping that policy, or are you doing away with the policy of insourcing?
We don't have a problem with the insourcing if it makes economic and financial sense. I think the point the late Geoff Makhubo, the executive mayor, made together with us in the ANC and as other parties was that when the insourcing was done of the security guards and the cleaners in the city, it was done as a populist stance. People were told that the city is wasting money, spending 15,000 rand on one security guard, and that security guard gets about 6,000 rand a month. So the bulk of the money goes to the service provider or the security company. But they didn't tell the people that there are many other things that are involved in it. It's not just paying the guy, it's also about providing the tools of trade. It's about the administrative component, and people are in business, they've got to make profit. So in a financial year, we used to pay about 600 million for security services. But with the insourcing, we are now paying about 1.2 billion as a city. So it has caused us serious problems. So we are saying there's no problem in insourcing, but do a study before you even start to say we're insourcing. If we look at our ICT contracts, there's a number of people that are employed by the private firms. So if we are to insource them and take them away from the ICT firms, what does it mean for us in terms of budget? If it means there'll be less money spent by the city in terms of paying for ICT services. It's a welcome thing. We can do it.
I'll just take quick questions coming through tonight on WhatsApp for the mayor, and this one from Paul in Bram saying, Mayor, what are your immediate plans in relation to the Johannesburg International Transport Interchange, the new taxi rank in the Johannesburg CBD?
Well, the GT is important to us, and I think there's been quite a number of delays because some of these contractors that were contracted to construct it and finish it went under, where to start the process afresh, get other service providers in place. But I think in the next few months, it should be open to the public, and I'm sure the transport stakeholders will be very happy. It's something that in the next few months we should be opening up because we, even in the adjustment budget, gave money so that we ensure it's completed. So I think in the next few months we should be enjoying the things that come with the transport interchange. That is quite crucial for growing the economy and the transportation of goods and people.
And Mayor, finally, before we let you go, I mean, there are those who've been critical, I suppose, of your appointment because of your declaration of your parents' nationality. Have you responded to those critics?
Well, I don't think it's something that I'm going to respond to. I'm a South African. I was born in South Africa in 1974. My father is a Zimbabwean national. He came from Zimbabwe. Because of the opportunities that Johannesburg provides, he was attracted to our great city. Met my mother, who is a South African from KwaZulu-Natal, and then that's how I came to be. I've never been to Zimbabwe, unfortunately, myself. I've spent my entire life in South Africa, so I'm a South African, but I'm also an African. I don't think it's an issue that bothers me. It doesn't give me sleepless nights, but I think it requires us as a society to have a debate about these kinds of issues, whether we see ourselves as Africans in a situation where we can declare that we should have a borderless Africa, we should have one currency as one continent, and a host of other issues. So I think it's quite an interesting point. I think we can pursue the debate and see where it gets us.
May I appreciate your time, and we wish you well in your administration. Hopefully we'll have a chat with you again soon, depending on how things go with the local government elections, maybe in the next 100 days to see what you have achieved. Appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.